Chapter 4 Falling Apples. Newton's ear at his mother's house came to be called his annus mirabilis. In Latin, that means miraculous ear. It seemed like a miracle that one young man could figure out so much in so short a time. Discovering the true nature of light and inventing calculus was just the beginning. He also began the work that would lead to the laws of motion named after him and to the theory of gravity. The famous story about Newton tells how a falling apple led him to discover gravity. This story may even be true. In his later years, Newton himself said his first notion of gravity was occasioned by the fall of an apple, and there were apple trees at Woolsthorpe. Aristotle taught that the reason things fall is because heavy objects have a natural tendency to move downward. Again, it seemed to Newton that Aristotle was wrong. He didn't think it made sense to say the objects had a built-in need to fall down. He thought there must be some kind of force that pulled things towards the earth. If there was such a force, how far up could it reach? Newton decided that maybe the force didn't have any limits. The very same force that pulled on the apple could also be pulling on the moon and the planets as well. This was a brand new and amazing idea. In Newton's time, people thought the universe was divided into parts. There were forces that worked here on Earth, and there were forces out beyond the moon. They were completely different. Because people couldn't travel to outer space, there was no way to study these forces. This meant no one could ever learn how the universe worked beyond the small parts people could reach. Now Newton had decided that if he studied the falling apples, he could learn about the forces at work on everything in the universe. The more he thought about it, the more certain he became. The force that made an apple fall from a tree was the very same force that made the moon circle around the earth instead of flying off into space. No one knows exactly how far Newton got and figured out all these ideas during his miraculous year, or how much he worked out later. It was a long time before Newton shared his thoughts with anyone else. All his life, Newton hated going public with his discoveries. He didn't like to tell anyone else until he was positive he had worked out every detail perfectly. He wanted to be sure no one could possibly catch him making a mistake. He also seemed to like keeping his bold, exciting ideas all to himself.